Hi guys, this is Mark. In this video, I will show how to create relationship columns between two different tables in Backendless, and we will also discuss one-to-one relationships. In the previous video, one of the examples that I provided for a one-to-one relationship is between entities person and passport. So let's reconstruct that model in our application and just see how creating object relationships works. First, let's create a table called person. And let's define, for the simplicity's sake, we'll just define one column that will be called name. That will be a string. And we can create a couple of people here. And let's say one is going to be Joe and the other one will be Anna. So there are two people. Now let's create a table called passport. And the passport table will also have just one column. We could create more, of course, with expiration and everything, but let's create a column that is called passport series, just so we can easily identify a passport. So here, the table is empty. We have a couple of people specifically to, and we have no passports. So a relationship that connects person and passport, it is a one-to-one relationship because, well, technically a single person can have multiple passports. Like, in Jason Bourne movies, Bourne had, a dozen of different passports. But let's just say that there is one in the application that this is a model for. So a one-to-one relationship is fairly easy to define. There are a few things that you need to keep in mind, and I'll go over that. So to create a relationship, both tables that the relationship connects need to be in place. You cannot define a relationship for something that doesn't exist. So the relationship in Backendless is essentially a column. Okay, and that column, you can see it as a connection between the tables. So that column has a column name, and it is important because whenever you start working with that relationship with the API, that column will be carrying related data if you are requesting it. So, and we will get to that also in this video. So select the person table and go to schema. And the reason I selected person table is because the column that I will create will be defined in the person table. So the person will be pointing to passport. Is the other way around possible? It is, and we will discuss that of why I didn't do it that way. But let's first create the column so we have the linkage between person and passport. For this, in schema, click new, and you can name the column passport. So here in the type, select data object relationship. So what's going to happen is there will be a column called person that will be pointing to a related object in the table passport. So here you need to select in the related table, select passport. Cardinality is one-to-one. This is where you can select one-to-one, one-to-many. You're not seeing many-to-many simply because many-to-many is something that is different. It is available, but it's not a primary cardinality that you can select. Once again, there is a separate video for that. So select one-to-one. Whenever you select one-to-one, you can select identification column. I will not select it yet because I would like you to see what happens when it's not selected. So click create, and now we have a column called passport in person that points to passport. If you go back to data browser, now you see this column right here. This is the column name. This is what it relates to. The table name is passport with P capitalized. The column name is passport with P lowercase. You can name your column anything you want to it. The recommendation is to name it something so it makes sense semantically. Whenever you retrieve data and you look at that column and it has related data, you need to know what it is. And assigning a logical name is always better. So here, right from the console, you can actually establish those relations. Establishing relations between two different objects works through the API as well. We're not looking into that yet. It's coming soon. But for now, I just want you to see how it works when you use Backendless Console. So to create a relation between the passport, you would click this icon right here. But keep in mind that we don't have any passports in the passport table. So creating a relationship between the objects requires that you have objects in both tables. So you cannot create a relationship for a specific object to another specific object if that other specific object doesn't exist. So what we're going to do is we will create a passport for both of these, well, two passports for both of these people, and we will set up the relationship. So click on passport and let's create a passport. So for the simplicity's sake, let's say the passport series for one is going to be all A's, and then for the other one, it's going to be all B's. So now there are two passports in place, and we do have a relationship column. The relationship column is more of a declaration. It's like a skeleton, but it describes in the schema that the tables are connected, that the objects may have a connection, but the connection between the objects need to be established either in console or through the API. So here, to establish the actual connection between Joe and the passport that belongs to Joe, click on this icon, and in here you will see all records from the related table. You can run search, you can run SQL search, which is where you would be using a query, or you can just scroll through and page through and find the right object. So let's say that all A series, passport series, will be the passport for Joe. Click add relation. So now Joe has a passport assigned to that person. In fact, if I click on this, then I can see that this is the passport that is assigned to Joe. Okay. Now, notice that here it just says relation, but for one-to-one relations, we could actually display data of the related passport. And this is where that identification column that I skipped comes into play. So now, if we want to display data, and that works only for one-to-one relations, if you go back to schema and then edit the data relation column, so click here, in the identification column, you can select a column that would be displayed in the Canvas console whenever you're looking at that record. So we want to display passport series. Click update. And now if we go back to data browser, notice that here, rather than saying the word relation, it displays the value from that identification column. So that is very handy. And it works only for one-to-one relations. When we get to one-to-many, you will see how that works. Okay, cool. So now we have relationship between object Joe and the passport that belongs to that person. And we can repeat the same thing for the record, for the person record belonging to Anna. Click plus, select BBB, and click add relation. So at this point, both people have their corresponding passports, and it is great. So a couple of things that you should keep in mind. With the way the schema is defined right now, nothing stops me by using the console or using the API to assign the same passport that belongs to Joe to Anna. In fact, let me show you how that works. It will look weird because this one passport can be assigned to one person, but let me demonstrate what could happen there. So click on this icon, and in here it says show only related object. Okay, if you click the other radio button, then this is going to be all other passports that were not assigned to that user. So here, if I click AAA and click update relation, what should happen is both people have reference to the same passport. And that is wrong, right? Because one passport should belong to one person. So how can we fix this? Let's do this. There is a way to enforce that only one passport can belong to only one person. So for this, let me unlink that passport from Anna by this. And to do this, I click on this icon. And on this very first screen where it says show only related object, I can remove this relation. So now Anna doesn't have passport. And I kind of rolled back the changes. So in order to enforce that only one record can belong to only one person, and you cannot have multiple people pointing to the same passport, we can specify a constraint for our passport relation. And for this, if I go to schema and click on the edit icon for passport, notice that in the constraints, there is a unique value constraint. So if I assign that constraint to that relation column, nothing really changes visually, but watch what happens when I will try to assign the same passport to the same passport that is already used to another person. So here, if we go back, the AAA passport is assigned to person Joe. And if I try to assign the same passport to Anna, the AAA, click add relation, we're getting an error, duplicate entry for column passport. So what that means is that the database enforces the rule that a passport assignment to a person must be unique. And as a result, that situation where I had two different people pointing to the same passport is not going to be possible because the schema constraints prevent that from happening. So now the only option that I have is to select the passport that hasn't been assigned to anyone, and now that works. So that is very important as far as the assignment of constraints to enforce true one-to-one relationship. That's how it works with creating those relationships. Really quick, I will demonstrate what it looks like when you retrieve data from the database. There's going to be a separate lecture on relation retrieval, but I want to quickly touch on this just so after you watch the video and try to replicate the same thing, you can play with this and you will have some guidance on how it works. So now with person table selected, if I go to REST console, in here you will see there is a button called relations. Okay, and by the way, when I click get, I get this response, which is what you would expect to see. What happens if I click relations? Here I can select a relation column, or I can select multiple relation columns because your table could have multiple relation columns. So if I select passport, okay, notice that in the URL there is a parameter called load relations and then equals and then the name of the relation column. If I click get now, the response that I get is a lot bigger, okay? And then what happens is that every single person that I got, and there are two, Joe and Anna, they do have an additional property called passport. It's going to be the same as the name of the relation column, and that property contains an additional JSON that is the actual passport object, okay? So this passport object was attached to the primary object, which is person, because I'm querying the person table, but we got the related object that is associated with that person. So for every person that we have in the response, we also have the corresponding passport. So this is how you would retrieve relations. There are way more interesting things that are possible here. We'll get there, but this is something that I want to mention just so you could play with this as you experiment and play with relations. That's all I have for you in this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful, and as always, happy coding.